Okay, so now we are recording this lecture. This lecture is Programming Technologies Laboratory, and agenda for today, precise agenda for today, it is Introduction to Development Environment. So I'm going to show you how to use GitHub in all your tasks you have accomplished during this course. Next, it will be Microsoft Visual Studio. It is development environment I selected for you. Mm, the development environment and the language development language C# has been selected actually only to provide you a context for general discussion I'm going to provide during these classes. So next topic, it will be introduction to test-driven development. So I'm going to show you how to use test-driven development, but actually you must remember that it's only introduction to this topic. It is not. I'm not going to cover all the topic because it's huge topic. Just a few things that could help you um, thinking about test-driven development, not just using test-driven development. Actually, it is not required that you must use test-driven development. It is just to help you. But dependency injection, it is required in the task one. Therefore, it is very important, I think, to understand the concept of the dependency injection. Actually, uh, um, next, I am again. I'm not going to provide you all details about dependency injection. It's a huge topic. Just a few things to understand where the object-oriented programming, where is the boundary between the object-oriented programming and dependency injection, because the dependency injection was derived from it is special use of object-oriented programming. Next, it will be QA session. So I'm waiting for your questions. As you see, uh, on this agenda, there is no introduction to the task you have accomplished during the laboratory. But during the QA session, it's possible that you will ask questions relating to this topic. I reserve the next lesson only for introduction to the task and to answering the question. This way, I'm giving you time to try to start working with this task, with the code, hoping that starting the work will be a good background for you to ask questions, to have questions actually, because after reading the text, it is very difficult to discover all the problems, discover all the issues that you will have during the development of the software. Okay, so let's go. So no, it's the last slide, but now I am going to switch to the development environment, and let me start from step by step. Let's start from the VCamp related to our topic, our course, Programming Technologies. After logging to this working workspace, you can find here you can find, for example, recordings for the past session. If you are late, if you are join us now, but here you can find C programming guide. It is the repository. It is the repository. So the first entry on the list, on the references, online references, it is GitHub repository. I'm going to use as source of all examples. And actually, in this repository, you can also find mm, code that can be used to solve task one and task two. Uh, the repository actually covers three topics. External data management. It is topic that relates to our lessons, relates to our course. Next is adaptive programming. It is additional course, but only for the Polish students. Also distributed programming. It is the course that it's on the second step, on the second level of the education. Uh, so actually for us, the most important thing is external data management. But there will be a few examples that I will get from adaptive programming, especially this adaptive programming for us will be very important. Talking about the program layers, about architecture of the program and layers in the programs. But external data management, it is what actually you should know and you should follow during the lectures, because actually only for the laboratory, for the task, you can find examples, but you cannot find. It's impossible to find solutions in this folder. There are only uh, examples for the selected I think important topics that must be covered by task one and task two. Actually, we have only two tasks. Polish students have very similar class, very similar course, and the Polish students have four tasks. This four task covers all the topics in this external data management folder, but we have only two because you are not well prepared. Actually, it is too hard for you, I think, to solve four tasks. But uh, anyway, solving the task one and task two, the code must be in the repository, must be in the GitHub repository. So the first question is how to use GitHub to manage your code. First, you must have your own repository. Uh, After, I'm assuming that you are logging into the repository. I was asked about the name. Actually, for me, the name, your name, and actually your email is not important on the GitHub. You have any. Actually, here I am. I am using my personal name and actually I'm pretty active, as you can see on this, but it is not limitation for you. You can use any email and you can use any name. But of course, there will be problem how to recognize that the code is your code, that it's your repository. But it will be on my list of problems I am going to discuss. I'm going to provide you some requirements, but let's start from the creation of the repository. So after logging into the GitHub is open platform, so anyone could create your profile and create your account. So after logging in, there is a plus sign that allows you to create new repository. I will not create new repository, but only provide you basic information about what you must do. First is of course the repository name. I think that uh, the requirements for you is that you will use only one repository for all the tasks, for task one and task two. Therefore, the name should be uh, should be similar, for example, to programming technology. So I'm using just two letters, but you can use the whole name. Uh, we are getting information that the name is available, so I can use this name because all the repositories must have different names, must have unique names. Therefore, it is very, very important to avoid any conflicts of the names. But the name is actually available for me. Therefore, I selected this one. But I'm not going to, I will not create the repository, so for me it doesn't matter actually. Here is also the description, is optional. But it is useful to have a description, something that it is just lecture laboratory for TP. The most important thing is here because we can select private or public. In any way, in any case, the repository is for free, so there is no need to pay for it. You can select public or private, but in both have some advantages and disadvantages. Public repository is available for all, so any who open the GitHub, we open also your repository and you will able to use your code. Um, it is it is useful, especially if you are going to send a message to the people, to the community. If you believe that your program could help people to do something. But the most important thing for you, I don't believe that you will be able to provide code that is very useful for community. But for me, the most important here is that actually I will be able to clone this, to get this code from your repository with any additional action and additional activities without any restriction. Mm, Selecting public repository uh, makes a problem because actually all the information that it's in the repository, it's public. It is required that in the repository there must be information I will use to authorize you. Make sure that I am talking with people that created this code. Therefore, it is required that in the repository, in the main folder, there will be a README file that provides the information that I can use to authorize you, authenticate you. Therefore, you must be aware that this information is public. Therefore, we must provide some partial information only that could be enough to identify you, but it's not enough to recognize you as it's not too general to recognize you. So it's only the information for you, it's only the signals for you. So I think that it is enough to provide here only a two, three letter from your names, and actually your university number, but not whole the university number, but last 3 or 4 numbers. I will provide you a template that you will use to create this README file. Recall me, please, in case I will forget about it. Private repository then actually hides all information that you will have in the repository, including README file. The README file still is required because still I need to identify you, but it is not available for community, it's not available publicly. Therefore, you can provide all details about you. There is no problems with publishing your private information. But the drawback for this solution is that I have appropriate you must add me to the authors of this repository only with the possibility of this depository uh, to allow me to clone, because uh, I am also member of the community. Therefore, if the repository is only private, it is only available for the for you, for authors of this repository. I'll switch my camera. I hope that it doesn't make any change in what you are seeing. So it is up to you to select private or and public. It is for me, doesn't matter, but you must remember about all these problems selecting one or second option. Okay. Next, it's add a README file. It is I suggest to mark this this option. After creation of the repository, you will get a README file, and in this README file, the first thing you must do is to provide in this README file the information that it's enough to identify you according to the template. Actually, it is, my template is not only, it is not requirements, it's just suggestion what to do to make sure that I am able to recognize you first, and second, that the information, your private information, it will be not available for the community publicly. Next option is very important, because in the repository, it is allowed to keep only the important files. If the file is automatically created by the development environment, it must be committed to the repository. It is not allowed to commit files like executables or binary result of the compilation to the repository. The repository must have only files that it's required, that is created actually by you. To make sure that that you will exclude all the unimportant files, you must select appropriate template. Depending on the environment, there's a lot of possibilities, but we must select for Visual Studio. There is option Visual Studio, I hope. Where it is? Visual Studio. Let's try Visual Studio. After starting writing, you will get options that actually meets the beginning, the prefix of the name. Visual Studio gitignore template provides all the information for the GitHub environment, client and server, that exclude all the from committing, exclude all the files, all the unimportant files from the committing to the repository. Of course, you can modify this file. It is a text file. It has special syntax, but for me, it is not required to know the syntax. It is not required to understand what is in the file. It is, for me, the most important thing is only to have this file, to make sure that in the repository there is only files that is created by you and not created by the compiler, but by development environment. Next, it is selection of the license. If you selected private repository, actually selecting of the license, it's not necessary. You can omit this step, but I think that it is still very important to understand the idea of the licenses. Actually, this course doesn't cover this problem. It is huge problem because publishing the code and making the code available for the community, there must be a restriction for the community how to use your code. It's your work, it's your intellectual property. Therefore, you must be aware about what happens next, what could happen with your code. Without discussing this topic in details, without diving in this problem, I propose to select this license. This license limits possibility to use this code this way that if the code is public, everything that comes from this code, that derives from the code, must also be public. Therefore, if there is anyone who use your code to develop your own code, the code must be published. Actually, people today follow these licenses, these license rules. Therefore, it is probable, it is almost sure that people will follow this license. Next possibility for you, it is mid license. Actually, mid license says everything is possible. People can do with your code what they like. There's no actually limitation except one. It should be the derived code should mention you as the author that you, for example, help, or the new code, the derived code is based on your code and should mention your ID. But in this case, it is useful that you have actual ID, but not nickname. And many developers today use nicknames on the GitHub to avoid providing personal information and to disclose private information to the community. Don't use this pipeline, Azure pipeline. I'm not going to discuss it. It is special use, and let's forget about this option. It is for testing, but for automatic testing, especially useful. But for us, it is not. It is not good option, because you must actually have account only on the Azure, but it's not the case. So it is all the information you must provide to create a repository. Next, it's create a repository. It's this button, but as I said, I will not use this button to create a repository, because for the rest of our discussion, I'm going to use our repository. TP, in Polish, it's technologia programowania, it's programming technology. Actually covers exactly, it is the repository I said previously. So you can find it starting from the programming technology workspace on the vCamp, on from my profile, from many other places. Here you have details about the content of the repository, how to use it. There is also important button here. Let's open it in the next tab. So it is guitar. It is just for chatting. It is play where I'm I am providing information to community about what happens, what I'm going to do. It is good place for discuss some problems, some issues with with this repository, or for in general with these topics. But it's not heavy use, so I think it's for now it's enough. You are welcome to join this Gitter chat, but it's not required. Actually, the most important thing is procedure that you must follow to request that you have finished the task and the task is ready for assessment. You must start after developing the code and making sure that the code covers all the requirements, all the requirements provided by the task. You must use this button. Actually, it is link, not button. Releases, and you must create a release. You must create next release, starting from the draft, a new release. Here, release create tags. Tags is a point in the repository. It's a unique point. It is important that it's unique point. So using the tag, I can open actually the code that has flag actually this tag. So after tagging the code, it will be possible in the future just to open exactly this code in this development point. Actually, in this development point, it is important because after finishing the task 1, you can start working on task 2. But having the tag, it is you and I we will be sure that we can open your repository in the place where you have reported this repository for assessment. Therefore, you must create release. To provide release, you must provide tag version. Usually in the GitHub, we are using semantic versioning. It is a concept. It is a standard, and you can find, I think, the link to this. Well, can't find it now, but actually there is a link to semantic versioning. Let's try find it. Semantic versioning or semantic versioning here. Semantic versioning 2.0. It is a standard. Actually, it's not concept, it's standard. How to create tags. And we are using this standard to create tags. For our classes, so the tag number should contain the tag version should contain 3 numbers. First number for these classes should be selected as the task number. So if you are reporting task 1, select number 1. If you are reporting task 2, select number 2. Next will be the number, because actually you can have 3 tries to pass the task. So actually here provides the number of the number of the try, number of this of the reports of the task. For example, it is first time you provide the task for assessment. If the assessment is not positive, you must improve the code and you must create next release. It is good to start the code development from the previous release or from any point in the repository, but next you must create next release, and here provide the number 2 and reports the task to me for assessment. The next number is up to you. Actually, if you recognize that your code is not perfect, you can change the code, you can modify this code, you can improve the code, and it's possible to create new tag, providing here new number. The number for me doesn't matter. It's number that can be used by you. So using these rules, actually, it is possible to create unique name all the time. You are creating new release. Here it's the title of the release, and also must be provided. Actually, this description, detailed description, is also up to you. It is not required; it's optional, but it is useful to provide here information what was modified, what was wrong with your code and have been fixed in this release. It could be helpful for us because actually I must, during the assessment, I am going to ask you questions that actually proves that the code is developed by you. But if there is some problems, it is not a good idea to start from the very beginning about discussing of the code. So if here I can find information about what was wrong, we can discuss only the point, only this point that is on the list. It's, of course, the list is up to you, and the question is up to me. So it is open. It is just for information. It's just for exchange information. What's going on with your repository and with your task. After creating the task, so I must leave it without creation the task. Without creation the release. So after creation the release, you can provide information that you are ready with the task, and you can use this yellow button code, and here you can find the link. Copy this link and provide me this link using the vcamp. On vcamp laboratory, and here it's place for task 1. And using this, of course, this it is the text of the task 1. Actually, it is my view. Let's try to switch to another role. Let's change to the student's role. Student, okay. What happens? And somewhere here in the feedback text, you can provide this link, and actually provide me. It is. I don't think it is good view. So vcamp doesn't provide real view what happens with on your account actually. So this it is the module that can be used to provide me the link from the repository where the repository is, but don't use the link for the release, just the link for the whole repository. Before I'm cloning the repository or I'm updating your repository, if the repository is on my computer, I'm just getting only the modification of the repository. I'm pulling the code from the repository, but next I'm switching the tag. It is the next step. The only rule here is that the code must not be modified. So we must discuss the code, we must assess the code that has been reported before you send the task for assessment. It is impossible to modify the repository. It is not allowed to modify the repository after reporting. Of course, you can do it. It is no problem. But you cannot report this version, this release for assessment. You must report, so we must discuss only text, only code, that it's before the data you send the task to assessment. Here you can find deadlines. So actually the task 4 must be accomplished up to this date. Let me show it, enlarge it. Only to week number 5. I hope that is good date, not sure. But here you can find I've added calendar for odd and even weeks. Of course, this is in Polish, but if you have any problems with understanding this calendar, let me know. I will provide you, I help you to translate it, but you can use also Google to translate it. I don't have English version of this document. Therefore, you must use this Polish document. For you, to make your life easier, I provided the date, actual date for this year, for the week number 5 and week number 10 for task 2. So after sending, you must push the button to send this task to assessment. It is required, and all of you must work in group, in two. So the group could contain 2 people, and both must press this button and send me this task to assessment. Okay, I think that the procedure now it's clear. If there is any problems and questions, it is good time to ask. I hope we'll get back to these topics also during the next lesson. The next lesson, the goal of the next lesson will be discussing content of the task and requirements of the task. So I hope it will be very good point, a very good point to return to all the questions related to the procedure. Okay, if there is no question, let me recall you that on the bottom you can raise the hand. There is a button that you can use to raise the hand if there is any problem. You can also write the question on the chat. I see the chat now, so can recognize. I'm able to recognize that there is any problem, any questions, and can ask and can read this question and answer your question. Okay, I hope that everything is clear. So let's start to the next point, to our agenda, and use Visual Studio. Visual Studio, actually, it is huge environment. It is very complicated, and there's thousands or millions of options, but it is not required that you will use all the options and understand everything. Actually, it is only the development environment that provides for me and for you a context that we can discuss more general topics. But we must discuss general topics in the real context, in the real environment, to avoid that the discussion will be completely abstract. Therefore, it is very important, the laboratory, to create the task, because this makes, for me, it very important to make sure that you can use and understand the environment and the language. Actually, the technology we are using, there is the name of the course. So I think there is not any surprise for you. Uh, we must start from this button, create new project. Uh, now I'm going to discuss the most important thing related to the test-driven development and dependency injection, because dependency injection it is required in the task one, and the test-driven development is not required, but the testing of the code is required. You must provide test. I'm not expecting that the test will cover all the code and all the detail of the code, but still you must understand what the testing, what the unit testing is. Uh, I believe that testing in general should be covered by independent course. It is too many topics, subtopics of the testing, that we are not time, we are not possible. I have not possibility and time to discuss this topic during this course, but it is up to you to ask me, because I know a lot about testing, so I can provide you probably answers to the questions that are not covered by the topic, by this course. This course only in this course it's only required that you will provide unit testing, at least a few unit tests that that no, that answers the questions about the correctness of the software. Um, uh, we actually will define in a couple of minutes. We'll define what actually unit testing is, how to use this unit testing. But first, we must select the appropriate environment. As I said, the Visual Studio is a very huge environment and actually covers many languages, many possibilities. Here we have uh, for the selection of the language, but we must select C#. It is an environment that we will use. Next, it is selection of the platform. Actually, all the programs will not have lecture, I think, but during the first lecture we answered the question what the platform is, and actually what the program is, and how to use the program, how to execute the program, what the computer actually I remember that we had seminars, so we had answered this question. First, let's return to the topic, return to the term abstraction. Let's record the discussion about abstraction during the lecture, because this option, all platforms, means that we are selecting solution that it's abstract, because we are hiding any implementation details. Our solution will be for all possible or known or covered by the appropriate implementation platforms. Platform actually means that now we are talking about operating system, because today all programs are executed in the context of selected operating system. All platform means that the code will be ready for all the platforms. Therefore, it is why it is important now. It is important now because I'm going to solve the very simple program. It's impossible to measure simplicity, but the algorithm I've selected is so simple that there is no need to explain it. Actually, let's solve the problem creation of the library that can be used by the calculator. Calculator let's provide only a few, just one selected operation, for example, addition or multiplication, doesn't matter. But the calculator we are going to create in the first step is without user interface. So actually it's not calculator, it's calculation machine. It is set of procedure, set of methods, a set of functions let me stress that I use three terms: method, function, and procedure. For you, homework is to try to think about what is the difference between three terms: method, procedure, and function. But providing this operation, providing this library, this calculation machine, selection by this, I'm hiding information about the operating system I'm going to use to execute this machine. So portability of this solution, it's very it is the most important thing here. So I'm saying this, by this selection, I'm saying it is portable solution could be used on any platforms. Is we know for any platforms, this abstract definition has appropriate implementation. Next, it's selection of the project type. There's a lot of project types, templates that we can use, but for task one, we will use only library and testing. You can also use the console. So only three templates for us. It's will be useful for task to accomplish task one. And actually, all these three project types I'm going to use in this example. For the first step, let's select library. Let's select library. I'm still getting a lot of possibilities, but the first one for .NET Standard, it is what I said previously. It is solution, it is library, it is abstract library that I can use on top of on any environment. And for this selection, I can use also almost all the languages available in this development environment. So you can forget about the rest possibilities, the rest the option. Let's select this one, and here we have the button next. So we must select how to call this library. Let me don't change the name to save the time, but one more information about, because here we have three entries. First is the project name. Second is locations folder. You know what it is, because in all the operating systems we have a file system, and in the file system we are using path to the places where we are going to save files, to create files. But solution is just in this environment, but not only in this environment. It is term that is used as a container of our work. It is a workspace for us. So if we are creating many different projects using different templates. So actually, the solution will aggregate all of them. So let's use the name PT as the program technology week 2 lab, to make sure that we can open the same solution next time if we will need to do it. Next option is place solution and project in the same library. Don't select this. Don't select this checkbox because we need to put the projects in independent folders to make sure that the code is independent, the places are independent, that everything is independent. Therefore, only in the very simple cases, use this option. Create makes this So after using this button, I'm creating actually the whole environment, a whole development environment I have. We must wait for a while because the Visual Studio needs a few seconds to do it. It is zoom. It's too large. So let's on the right side for you, the starting point, it is Solution Explorer. Solution Explorer, it is the place, it is like the file explorer in the operating system that you can use to open any items that are collected, aggregated by the solution and aggregated by all of the projects. After creation the project, I've created automatically by this template, a class was created. Automatically was created, but I said that it is not allowed to commit any automatic code to the repository. Actually, it is not automatic because here I can change it. So after entering any new letter, any new character, I've made modification, and actually starting from this point, it is my code. It is not automatically generated code. But to make sure, let's delete this file. Let's recall me that I said during this seminar, last seminar, that the program is a text. It's a text that must be compliant with selected language. So first, it is creation of the text. Here you have the option add. There's many possibilities because in the project could be added many resources. Not all resources are used to create the program. Some resources are as just helper information or thus additional resources that we are using during the development, but they are not used as a source of the code. They are not compiled. But we'll not, in the first task, we'll not use things like that. Therefore, for us, the only option is, as you can see, there is many options, but you must use only one, create a class. So I'm creating a class. After selecting this one, there's next, it is a lot of possibilities to select a class template. I'm going to create just a simple class, calculator. Selected the name calculator because I'm going to create calculator library, calculation library. Actually, it is it is calculation machine that I'm going to use in a program, but I'm not creating the program. So the first question will be how to make sure that my code actually it solves an algorithm. It implements it selected algorithm. But to select the algorithm first, we must remember that we are talking about the object-oriented programming. So one of the paradigm of the object-oriented programming is encapsulation. Encapsulation means that we can control the access to the definition in the code from different places. One of the important place for us, it's outside of the project, because the library project will be used as a source of functionality, a source of definitions, but by another different projects. For example, console. For example, command line that provides user interface. Therefore, the most important thing is to select the API of this library. API means application program interface. Interface means that something is abstract. That something is abstract. So the first thing we must think about is to avoid exposing not necessarily unimportant information to the user of this library. But let's avoid now discussion about the abstraction API and things like this, because the calculator, we are going to use this calculator as the calculation machine for the other projects. So here we must provide public what I do it is to press Control and space, and actually the environment provides me the rest of the word. So after starting, it is a result of the what we call it is IntelliSense. IntelliSense is a very smart machine that works under the cover, works in the background, and try to follow what we are going to do and try to help us to do to avoid mistakes and to avoid in many places to avoid thinking. But we must remember that thinking during the creation of the program it is our job, so we cannot avoid thinking. But in many places the IntelliSense, it is too smart for me and tries to be smarter that I am, and will do the same with you. Try to provide you many helpful information that actually you should avoid this proposal for some reasons. We'll discuss this reason during the seminar. But actually, it is really really smart environment. So using a typical approach for the software development, now we should start here to provide the code that implements our algorithm. If you are going to implement a calculation machine that can be used by the calculator, here, for example, we should define a method that returns that we are using for adding two numbers, int a and int b. This red lines, it's also the result of the IntelliSense. IntelliSense try help us, and actually it starts compilation in the background under the cover and provides information and provides the result of this calculation to avoid that you must compile the whole code to fix the problems you have locally in this for example in this line. But it's up to you to analyze these messages and follow this advice. Here you can open the list of advices that IntelliSense provides you, and in many cases these advices say that the IntelliSense it's clever, it's it's smarter than you are. Therefore, be careful to select appropriate one. Try to understand this code, but not try to follow these advices. Actually, the advices for the experienced programmers are very, very useful. But I think that I am assuming that you are just starting your development you are just building your development experience. Therefore try to think about it, not to follow just the advices. So here, now the definition is abstract. What I said, it is, the definition is abstract because I have not provided implementation, so I have not provided information about how to execute this operation. It is actually, in this language, we call it method. Recall my question about the method, procedure, and function, because the method, function, and procedure still exist in many languages. Therefore, it is an example of the generic topics we will go to discuss in context of this concrete language, because in this language we are using only the methods, but still it makes sense talking about the functions and procedures. The question is, what the cases where we should talk about the method and where we should talk about procedures. Okay, so next you should provide implementation. So we have fixed one problem. Second problem, it is that because this method returns a number, integer, so we must return this integer, because if the method requires to return something, we must return this value. But now it is we should use just the language to define the implementation. The implementation is something like this. Of course, encapsulation. Next, to make sure that this operation has been added to the API of the library, can be used outside of this library, we must make this definition public. So we must actually, it is not exporting, because actually we are not doing anything. We are just saying it is public definition. That's all what here we are doing. Next very important thing, it's this tree using lines, but after clicking on the right button on the mouse, you have the option remove and sort usings. You can see that all the using has disappeared, and actually for us it's good, because there is no need to discuss what the namespace is, but still we have here we have definition of the namespace. Therefore we must get back to this term in a couple of minutes. But I promise to provide an example how to use test-driven development. In test-driven development, we are starting not from definition of the implementation of our algorithm, but starting from testing that our implementation is correct. To test, we must, I hope you see this part of the screen. I'm checking on my second screen where I have just an icon, what you are seeing. But if there's something wrong, there's a question, there's something, question, let me open this question. No. The question relates to GitHub. No, it is not. It is not allowed. You must use one repository. You must use one repository, and you need to work in this repository using this repository by all of the members of this group. But it is a very good question, because there must be another thing I must mention relating to the participation in the code development. But let me recall it before the end of the lesson, because I must use a different tool to show you how I am going to check that all the members of the team, the participation of the all members of the team are more or less equal. It is very important. It is very important thing. But now let's go back to our example and try to provide you an example of test-driven development. In test-driven development, first we are creating the test. Second, we are creating the code as the result of the text. So we should start from testing if the operation works as expected. Second, we should implement the operation to work as expected. But traditional approach is to provide implementation, to provide an operation, implementation of an operation that works assuming as expected, and next provide test to make sure that it works as expected. To provide testing, we need additional project. We need additional project. So on the solution, as a container, as the aggregation of the project, I am clicking on the right button on the mouse, and here I've added the option. So I'm adding new project. The screen is exactly the same at the very beginning. We used to create our library, so still we are selecting C#, but now, because the test must be executed. So it is not possible to provide testing that are abstract. We must provide concrete implementation of the test. To provide concrete implementation of the test, we must select a concrete environment for this test. As I said, the library could be used in any environments, but testing, it's impossible. You must select appropriate environment for testing to make sure that the implementation for this platform exists. Let me select Windows as the environment because I'm using actually the Windows environment. So for me it is this selection is very useful. If you are going to use different, it's impossible to use for you any different platform, because the assessment procedure start from running the compiler, and after making sure that the program is correct, there is no compilation errors, the next step is to run all the tests. Because I'm going to use Windows machine, it is virtual machine, it's on the screen actually. So the test must be, here you must select Windows. Next, it is selection, what we are going to do, template. As I said, we'll use 3 templates. First is library, and second is test. So here we have all the options for the test. There's many options, using unit test, using NUnit, using Microsoft, and there's many different possibilities how to test. There's different kinds of testing. There's many tests that are special, provide special functionality, provide special functionality to test, to be used in a special context. But we are not going to use this. We are not going to learn details, dive in details of this development environment, because it's impossible to follow. The development, it is actually the Microsoft and a lot of firms that cooperate work on this development, and this development rapidly extends this functionality. So we should expect we should expect updates almost every week. I propose to select the first one, Microsoft Test. It is very simple environment, but I think that for now it is not to make all the possibilities, all the flexibility possible in this environment. For us, the most important thing is to accomplish the task before the deadline. Therefore, the complications before the using any complication, any places where there could that could provide any doubts, it's I think it's we should avoid a solution like this. Therefore, I select Microsoft Test. It is a very simple environment. Therefore, after selecting, let me keep the names proposed by the environment. For me, it doesn't matter. Of course, in your code, it could be easier to provide real names, the names that resembles functionality, resembles the function, resembles the goals of the code, resembles the algorithm. For example, I use the calculator name to name the class that should provide all the functionality expected by the calculator. But here we can observe that we've got a class, public class. It calls unit test, but doesn't matter. But the important thing here is that we have attribute. Attribute says that it is a test class. What did it mean, test class? It means that environment will first create object of this class. Let's recall object-oriented programming. From type, we are creating the object. The type we have during the development stage, but objects we have during the execution stage of the program. We have two stages, two different, completely different stages of the program. So this attribute says the development environment to create an object from this class. It is the first step. Second step, it is to execute all the method that has attribute test method. If the method is prefixed by the test method, I said prefixed because doesn't matter if it is in the one line or if it's two lines. It doesn't matter. But testing environment execute this test method. Executing the test method means that testing environment tries to answer the question if the code run as expected. So actually it provides all the functionality and creates all the data that we are expecting for this testing point. It is very important that all the tests should be done against the testing data. So this testing data we are using to create results. And now next we can check the results to make sure that the results are all as expected. And here you have a menu with the test entry. In the test entry, there is entry Test Explorer. It is what I closed at the very beginning after opening the Visual Studio. I closed this window, but this window for us is very important because here you should get the list of all of the tests, all of the method that the environment will execute, and environment will use this method for testing the program. Here is a very important button because during the assessment, I will use this button to execute all the tests. All the tests you have defined are in the code. After running, before the running, the environment will execute compiler. So first, the code must be compiled. What it means compiled, let's recall from the seminar. During the seminar, we discussed what it means compiling. Actually, in this case, it is converting the text into the binary program that could be executed by this execution environment by window. But can you see this yellow, this green sign? It says that everything is okay. So the program works as expected. It is the first plane that we can recognize that testing are not used to check if program works as expected. Because now we've got an answer, we've got a sign that the code works as expected, but the code's actually doing nothing. But we expected from the code that the library would provide calculation machine, provides operation that could be used by the calculator. Therefore, you see that for me it is not enough to see that all the tests are green, but in the production environment it is required. Usually, the unit tests are to be executed automatically during the night batch by selected server. So selected server get code from the repository and executes all the unit tests. Before executing unit tests, the code must be compiled, of course. But if there's for all of the tests, there are not all tests passed, it could be very, very huge problem for you, because you must talk with your boss and explain why your test is for example, red. So the problem for us is what to do to make sure that the test, that we can mark the test that it's not finished, that we are still working on it, that we are still developing. For possibilities, you know it from all the languages, that we must throw an exception. System not implemented. You can see that the menu opens automatically, and it is result of IntelliSense. Actually, IntelliSense are trying to guess what we are going to do, what we are going to write, to avoid, for example, if you have a long names, to avoid that all the names might be you must remember all the long names. So from this list, I can, for example, use this exception. Additionally, here I can provide to be done feedback for all that are going to read and understand this test. After running this test, we can get the result, and now the result, it's red. It means that the test fails, that there is something wrong with the code. Now the code doesn't work as expected. So it is the first example that answers the question, what actually the unit tests do. But the answering this question in details, it's your homework. Think about it. I'm not going to discuss in details about the unit testing, but let me only provide. So this solution is not correct to mark a code as not finished, because you will get the test in red, and actually you must discuss with your boss why your code fails during the testing batch. Therefore, the better solution is avoiding all discussion about the details, diving into the details about the unit testing. It is to write something like that. Assert is a class that provides, that is very helpful, that provides all the information we'll use to test the program. And one of the possibilities, it is to use the inconclusive. Using this method, here we can also provide the feedback to be done. And after that, after starting this testing, what happens? Now we'll get the information that the test is inconclusive, that the test is not finished. It's yellow sign. It is information for all, for testing machine and also for your boss, that you are still working on this test. It is possible that you will work as long as you need to provide appropriate code to make sure that the code actually covers your code, your base code, your library, and answers the question if the code works as expected. But it is up to you. What actually means that the code is up to you? We'll try to answer this question during the next lesson. Actually, we will continue exactly from this point. So you are welcome, and join us next week. I try to book also the webinar to record this the lesson, and during this lesson we'll try to answer the question how to answer the question, how to test that code works as expected, and actually provide the information about what the test-driven development is and what the dependency injection is. That's all for today. So there is good place for,